Welcome, everyone, to what is now the fourth episode of the Nickel and Dime podcast. I am Tyler Eaton, joined as always by Harrison Valk. We've got Casey Warner back with us. He's going to talk some Kentucky football after their big win over Mississippi State. He's also going to talk some Rams football and the rest of the NFL. Of course, you know we always talk about college football and the NFL here on the Nickel and Dime podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening from the Anchor app or whatever app you decided to go to from there, go ahead and drop a like, a follow, whatever they have, and make sure to share it with all your friends so they're not missing everything that's going on here on the Nickel and Dime podcast. Like I said, we're going to talk about UK football. We're going to talk about WKU picking up their first win of the season against Ball State. We're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans making a big statement against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll have natural selection, Harry's Heisman hopeful, some fantasy advice for you, and much, much more. But for now, let's dive into some college football. This past Saturday was huge for college football fans all across the country. I know you UK fans definitely had a fantastic weekend. Florida fans as well. You had a good weekend. Harrison, I know on that front, you probably had a pretty good weekend watching your Gators beat up on the Vols.
Oh yeah. It's always good to see the Gators improve like that. I mean, I think after that UK loss, we definitely Dan Mullen was like, okay, something's definitely up.
Yeah.
I know like Colorado State isn't really a challenge too, but we've definitely been working. I could tell that our offense has definitely improved. I'm excited to see what we have left.
A team that has definitely improved across the board. WKU, they picked up their first win of the season.
Go Tops.
Yes, beat Ball State 28-20 on the road. Oh, a topsy-turvy game for sure. It looked like at the end, WKU was going to let them back in it. I just had that feeling like, you got to win this one. This is one that you have to win.
I was too, yeah.
But I mean,
I actually thought that they had a chance there.
I thought they were going to win, but then like that way that last drive went for Ball State, the way they were driving down there, I was a little bit topsy-turvy about it.
A little nervous.
I was a little nervous about it, but WKU pulled out the win. Really shocking, though, was how Stephen Duncan was able to come in and play. Davis Shanley went out at halftime. No one's really sure about what happened to cause the injury. It was something in his throwing arm. They just ended up pulling him out of the game. But Harrison, when Duncan was in there, he looked a lot better than he did against Louisville.
Yeah, he did. I do think that he has a chance to. Because when you think about like the quarterbacks at WKU, you're wondering like we've seen like all three of them play now. First it was Eccles for the first two games. Then it was
Shanley.
Davis Shanley. Thank you. And now it's Stephen Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
And that raises the question, who is going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season?
It's a good question. And I personally, this is just me, I still think the best quarterback is yet to play. You've got four-star Kavaris Thomas still sitting on the bench. You've got the three guys that have played, and then you've got Thomas sitting on the bench. I think he's probably the best of all of them. There's a reason that he was a four-star recruit coming in, and you've got that redshirt rule to where he can play in any 4 games, and you can put him out there. He can still redshirt this season. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to see him. I don't think it matters that I think he's the best quarterback or anything. Right. But like you said, I think there's definitely a quarterback controversy right now on the Hill because against Louisville, Shanley looked awesome.
Yeah.
And now Duncan comes out against Ball State, and he looked great, threw 2 touchdown passes.
Gives the Tops their first win, which is something that we always like to see.
Yeah, I mean, we sat here and we discussed, can they win a game after the main game?
Yeah,
and then they had a great performance against Louisville. We figured they had a good shot at this one. They ended up winning it 28-20. Another big thing, though, for the Tops, Harrison, the run game has really developed since the beginning of the season. This one, the Hilltoppers run for almost 200 yards once again as a team. Joshua Samuel leading the charge. And on the last drive for WKU, when they were on offense, Harrison, I watched them drive straight down the field, and Joshua Samuel put this team on his back. And it looks like going forward, the run game is actually going to be a key part of this offense.
I do too. And along with the quarterback and the running back, like the two like good combos that make a good offense. If Stanford and the other coaches are able to find that formula, or just whichever quarterback is suitable for that formula, then I think they'll be able to find the answer, and they'll be able to win more games and just improve their offense.
I mean, in general. Shanley was thought to be that option because he was thought to be the running quarterback.
Yeah.
But then Duncan ran for 55 yards on Saturday. So I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this quarterback situation? I mean, what would you do, Harrison? Who do you think that you would go with if all three were healthy? putting you on the spot.
Yes, you are. And it's a good question, too. I mean, I've never really had to, when you're talking about like football teams, I've never really had to decide between like all three quarterbacks.
I mean, usually you don't. This is the only team in the country that has started three quarterbacks.
Exactly. You only usually see like one or two start. I mean, you never really see three. I can tell you it's definitely between Shanley and Duncan.
So no Eccles. And that's the crazy thing to think about that is that Eccles was the day one starter.
Yeah, that is true.
And now it seems like these other two guys have really stolen that from him.
Yeah, they've kind of stolen the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, and Shanley, the redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore only is Duncan. So both guys young at this point. And one thing to look out now, the Hilltoppers are 1-3, but they're starting to go into conference play. And at this point, Harrison, I've talked to some people about this. Mm-hmm. Do you think WKU has done enough at this point to really try to come back and at the very least contend to become bowl eligible?
Dang,
Another
Tyler,
tough one. I'm hitting you with the tough questions. I'm hitting you with the tough ones.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, dang.
It's hard to think about because we're going now. At the beginning of the season, it was can they be bowl eligible?
Yes.
Then it switched. It is can they win a game? And now we're back to can they reach bowl eligibility? Because this team looks completely different than they did against Maine. This looks like a completely different football team. So do you think at this point, you don't have to look at it game by game, but do you think this is a team, I'll rephrase, is this a team that is talented enough to reach bowl eligibility?
I will say that there is some work that needs to be done, both in the offense and the defense, definitely to improve. And am I allowed to say I'm not exactly
I mean, you
sure?
don't have to be sure. It's not a yes or no question.
No. I'm really not sure. I mean, I've seen like the schedule for the upcoming games, and I will be honest, I did think that ODU we were actually going to beat, but after that win against Virginia Tech, that game has
completely flipped around. I texted Garrett Browning that I do Red Towel Radio with on ESPN, and I said that ODU game has completely flipped on its head. He's like, I thought that was a win. Now I'm not sure at all.
Exactly. I thought the exact same thing. They had a 1% chance of winning that game. It was like the biggest flip, and Virginia Tech is number 13 ranked in the top 25. Not anymore after that loss, but I was like, really? ODU? I mean, that was their first win of the season too.
Yeah.
They were 0-3.
It was the biggest upset by an FBS team over an ACC team since Kentucky beat Louisville back when they had Lamar Jackson a few years ago. So that was a huge upset. And like we said, that ODU game was thought to be a very winnable game for WKU. And when you look at the schedule, there was that one. There's the Charlotte game you look at and you say, okay, that's a pretty winnable game.
Charlotte is a pretty winnable game.
Yeah, you've got UTEP at home on senior night. That one should be a pretty winnable game. UTEP hasn't won a game in I don't know how long. But other than that, this team is going to have to go out there and be able to win 50-50 games where it seems like both teams can win. And that seems like an issue this team. I don't know if they fixed it against Ball State, but it looks like they're learning how to win.
Yeah, definitely.
So if they can do that, then maybe they can reach bowl eligibility to build on that. I don't know. But
as of right now, I don't want to say yes and I don't want to say no. I just don't know. I just don't know.
It's plausible, but it's not guaranteed.
No.
So that's what we'll go with. We'll go with possible, but not guaranteed.
Yes.
How about that?
I would like to see them in a bowl game too. I will say that.
Possible, not probable.
Yes,
we'll go with that. But another thing that we've touched on in the past, after the Maine game, everybody within 30 miles of here was calling for Mike Sanford's head. They wanted Sanford gone.
Yeah.
Then comes the Louisville game.
There was even some during the Louisville game too.
I didn't understand that.
I didn't
There
either.
was not one person that expected WKU to win that game.
No, it's never one person's fault. It's like the whole team. It's not one person's fault.
Right.
It's usually, I'm not saying it's the whole team's fault either. There are definitely some things that caused the team to lose, but it's not just one person's fault. There were just some things that need to be worked out there.
So I mean, after this game against Ball State, we looked at Sanford. I personally said he's going to be here for the rest of the season. People wanted him gone directly after the Maine game. People still wanted him gone after the Louisville game.
Yeah.
Do you think at this point he has locked up his job for, at the very least, the rest of this season?
I think after that win against Ball State, I would say so. And you and I already talked about this last week. We said like you can never fire a coach after like the first 2 or 3 games of the season.
Technically you can.
Well, yes.
But we said it's not going to happen.
Exactly. Here. Yes, exactly. Well, you can. But I remember now. But yeah, wait until the end of the season, see how your team has done, and then make a decision after the season and see if you want him to come back or not. And if not, just find somebody else.
All right, from one big team to another, we'll switch from WKU's first win of the season to UK's 4th win of the season to start out 4-0 from the red and white to the blue and white. Let's talk some Big Blue. Big Blue Nation spent Saturday celebrating. It was a rainy day in Lexington and all over the Commonwealth, but the Kentucky Wildcats moved to 4-0 on the season with a 28-7 win over Mississippi State. I'm joined now by Casey Warner. Casey back once again. And Casey, once again, you were at the game, weren't you?
Yes, sir.
What was that experience like? I'm sure, once again, another awesome experience for you.
Amazing experience, Tyler. And like I was saying earlier, it was just a great fan base. I did not expect to see the fan base support them that much in weather like that, and it definitely showed that the fan base has definitely turned a liking to Mark Stoops and definitely turned around in the right direction. And pouring down rain the whole game, fans in ponchos, bleachers soaking wet, everybody on their feet, loud crowd chanting, waving towels. I mean, I haven't seen the fan base like this since I've been alive, and it's very impressive to see that this team has gained the support of the fans like this, and I'm very happy to see that as a UK fan.
And it seemed like from the outset of that game, the Wildcats really seemed to dominate up front in particular. Those linebackers were incredible. Josh Allen looks like a top 15 draft pick
Monster.
In the NFL draft. The Wildcats only threw for 71 yards. Terry Wilson did not have his best game by any measure, but Benny Snell, 165 yards on the ground, and the Wildcats defense holds what was a dominant Mississippi State offense to only 56 yards on the ground as a team. So, Casey, I think the big question from people now is UK, they enter the rankings. They're in at 17 right now. Where from here do the Wildcats go? Do they continue to trend upward? I've seen people say, believe it or not, that they are the number 3 team in the SEC right now. I don't know if I'd go that far because that had them over both Auburn and LSU. But where do you think this team goes from here? Is it top 2 in the SEC East? Is it legitimately contending with Georgia this season? Is it maybe trying to get into a New Year's Six bowl? Because that's certainly possible. Where do you think they go from here?
From here, I'd say the sky's the limit, Tyler. I mean, we have a team here that beat the number 14 ranked team in the nation 28-7 when absolutely nobody expected it. And,
that's right. Yeah.
And they're still not getting respect from everybody. I mean, look at the spread for the South Carolina game this Saturday. They're still underdogs by 2, and they're at home.
That was ridiculous. That blew my mind.
I just don't understand. I mean, Benny Snell is starting to get a little bit of his dues. He's kind of in people's Heisman conversations now, and a 28-7 win over the number 14 team in the nation when you're unranked. I mean, what more do you have to do? It's just, I think these guys are really going to come out there and shock the world, and I think that's what Mark Stoops is putting in their head. And we're definitely going to see later in the season what they're made of. A game at Texas A&M is going to be huge.
That's going to be huge, yep.
Huge for the season, and definitely welcoming Georgia to Kroger Field later in the season is going to be a big turning point in the season. They have all the games on the schedule they need to prove everybody wrong, and I think they can do it. And I really think that this is a top 3, top 2. I mean, maybe even the SEC East winning Kentucky team we see here if they continue to trend in the right direction like they have been.
I mean, at this point in time, it looks like the game between Kentucky and Georgia is going to be the SEC East championship game. If Kentucky is able to handle their business against South Carolina, even if they drop that game at Texas A&M, they would still control their own destiny with the win over Georgia. I don't know about top 3 team in the SEC. I don't know if I could put him over Auburn or LSU right now. As much as I've ripped on both of those teams in the past, I've not been the biggest fan of either of them, because if you had to put the SEC in tiers, I think most people can agree on this, that Alabama and Georgia are their own. If you had to break that down even more, Alabama is on a tier of their entire. They're on a tier of their own over all of college football. But one guy that seems to be on a tier of his own right now is Benny Snell. You touched on him in the Heisman conversation, and I really wanted to see your take on this, because I am a firm believer that right now Benny Snell should be in the Heisman conversation for sure. And I think for the rest of the season, he is going to be there. He's going to be a lock in that Heisman talk.
He definitely should be. I agree with you completely, Tyler. He's just a monster right now. I mean, there's no other way around it. I mean, there was runs in a rainy, not sloppy because it's on turf, but I mean a rainy, wet field at Kroger Field that he was just making unbelievable runs, making defenders miss, and he's just a bowling ball. He's not the quickest guy, but he knows how to bulldoze over guys on that defense. And I mean, a defense like Mississippi State, if you're running over guys like that and making big runs against them, I mean, who can you not run against?
Right.
It's just he's showing so much heart and he's showing so much pride for Kentucky. There hasn't been a player we've seen in a long time that has this much heart and believes in himself like Benny Snell does. You know, a 2-3-star guy coming out of high school, and nobody expected this. He got playing time as a freshman, ran for 1,000 yards, ran for 1,000 yards again in his sophomore season, and it's just we're seeing this guy explode into the great runner I think he is, and I think by the end of his career, he's really going to be one of the greatest running backs in Kentucky history, and he definitely deserves to be in everybody's Heisman hopefuls this year.
Already has the most rushing touchdowns, I believe, in UK history. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yep. Most total touchdowns, I think, as well. I think he beat Randall Cobb for that one. On the season so far this year, 540 yards on the ground already, 7 touchdowns to go along with that. But last week, Casey, well, not last week, 2 weeks ago when you were on, we discussed this Kentucky team, and we said that we think it's reasonable to believe that this team could win 10 games.
Correct.
I really, even as I said it, I had a hard time believing that. And our main thing for saying that was that if you win 2 of these 3 games against Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Texas A&M, they've already gotten one of them out of the way. So right now, do you think 10 wins could end up being an underestimate? I mean, it obviously could. Do you think that's a reasonable place to put our hopes? Or do you look at the schedule and say, maybe we should calm it down because you've still got at Missouri, you still host Vanderbilt, you go to a Tennessee team that is down this year for sure. It's not a Tennessee team of the past. That should be a win. And they're still at Louisville, which is a Louisville team, which is down as well. So do you think people should pump the brakes? Or are you just all in on the Stoops train and you're all in on this season and this Kentucky team getting double-digit wins?
You know, being a Kentucky football fan is very hard. And when Kentucky has a season like this, I say you put all your eggs in one basket.
You go all in right now.
Put all your eggs in one basket. You know, the saying is don't put all your eggs in one basket. But this year, I think Kentucky fans need to put all their eggs in one basket. The sky's the limit, like I was saying earlier. I mean, we just haven't seen a Kentucky football team like this since the Rich Brooks years. And even at that, they didn't show the promise that this team has. This team has a Heisman candidate, a quarterback that's only in his redshirt sophomore year, and the sky's the limit for him as well. He had a bad game against Mississippi State, but against Florida, he looked great. And I mean, it's just we have not seen a team like this in Kentucky football in a while. And I really think that realistically, 10 wins is realistic now. I mean, because we got Georgia, who's obviously going to be a very tough game, and most people are expecting them to lose. I'd say the other most expected loss on that schedule is probably going to be at Texas A&M. That's a tough one. So that's the two most realistic losses, I'd say. But besides that, all very winnable games. I mean, at Mizzou is going to be a tough game.
They just hung with Georgia pretty well this past week.
Right. They're a pretty decent team. I mean, at Louisville, that's never a pushover. You know, rivalry, there's always good games no matter how good each team is. Like Kentucky upsetting Lamar Jackson in the Cards 2 seasons ago. Nobody expected that. So, you know, never overlook any game on the schedule, but it really looks right and it really looks positive for the Cats right now. And I think fans just need to hold their heads high, go to every game they can, and have the right attitude because this is the year to have it.
I mean, this is a lot like the Kentucky team. I think it was 06, 07, sometime in there when they beat LSU. They beat Louisville. They were in the top 10, and then they went to Florida, and it all went downhill from there. That Georgia game this year is going to be a lot like that Florida game last year. And before we move on to looking at what is going to be week 5 now already of college football, which is insane to think about at this point.
Crazy.
This is a stat that I found that is just as crazy as that. This AP poll was the first time since 1957 that Duke and Kentucky, 2 basketball schools, have been ranked in the same AP poll. You want to know how many times it's happened in the basketball AP poll since then?
How many?
547 times.
Oh, wow. Well, that's not surprising.
547 times. That's crazy. But we're going to move on now to looking at the rest of the college football world, particularly looking forward to week 5. I mentioned Duke. They are in the rankings at number 22. They host Virginia Tech. The Hokies, with a huge letdown game, lose to Old Dominion, the biggest upset against an ACC team for an FBS opponent since I don't know how long it's been. I saw the stat somewhere. Me and Harrison touched on it. Some other games, undefeated Syracuse. They go to Clemson. That should be a game to watch for an upset. West Virginia, number 12 right now in the country. They go to Texas Tech. They're in the rankings now at number 25. Number 4, Ohio State goes to number 9, Penn State. That's one of the 2 big games this week that people are watching for. The other one, number 7, Stanford versus number 8, Notre Dame. We talked about South Carolina going to Kentucky. Number 20, BYU. They go to number 11, Washington. Ole Miss goes to number 5, LSU. And number 19, Oregon at number 24 Cal to round out this week. And Casey, I know that if I ask you which game you're going to like, that you're really, really going to be glued to the TV for, I know which one you're going to say, but give me a game outside of that South Carolina-Kentucky game that you are really looking forward to this week that you think could have either playoff implications or just it could be one of the most important games moving forward going into the rest of the season.
Out of those games you just mentioned, my most important game would definitely have to be Ohio State and Penn State. I'm not a huge Big Ten fan, not a huge fan of the game of football and how it's played in the Big Ten, but I think that game is probably the earliest signs we're going to see of playoff implications happening. That's definitely going to be a game that the AP is going to put on their schedule and look to see, how much of a loss that means for each team. Penn State and Ohio State can definitely control their own destiny in the Big Ten. Whoever wins that game, I think, is going to be looking like they have the title sewed up, maybe in a sense. Michigan's lingering around there, but those are definitely the two front runners, I'd say, in the Big Ten. And after that game, we're definitely going to have more of a sense at who's going to stick around in the top five and who's going to kind of fall out. So I'm looking forward to see, who comes out on top of that game.
I mean, I feel like we've reached the point where you can really seriously look at games and say this has big time playoff implications. That game, I definitely agree, has those. The one I'm looking at, of course, I would say that one is right there. Of course, they're the two big games I touched on. I'm going to go with Stanford at Notre Dame. Reason being, I said earlier this year that if Notre Dame can finish their season with one loss, they're in the playoffs. But the more that I look at their schedule, the more that I think they might have to go undefeated because they play a very difficult schedule every single season on paper. This year, it's not panned out. Of course, they've got the Stanford game. Then they go to Virginia Tech, who just lost to Old Dominion. And then later in the season, they always bank on that USC game. They don't look like the USC of the past.
No.
It looks like what we've gotten used to seeing, unfortunately, over the past few years before Darnold came in there. They kind of look like a mediocre team. I don't know if that's the nicest way to describe it. They don't look great right now. And they also host Florida State, which coming into the season is one game that you would think is going to be a huge matchup. But Willie Taggart has not been able to get those guys going. So this game for Notre Dame might be their one big opportunity to get that one signature win to push them into the playoffs if they can finish the season out undefeated. I think they get in for sure if they go undefeated. But if they have one loss and it's not this game and they have this win on their resume, I think they end up getting in. So be on the lookout for all of those games. Harrison's back there.
Right,
Casey,
right.
I know you'll be looking forward to the South Carolina-Kentucky game. I know you'll be glued to that TV. So give me one key for the Wildcats in that one if they want to come out with a win.
I'll actually be there again, Tyler.
So you'll be
I'll be glued to that field.
Yeah, he's been at every game.
The one key to the game I have to say against South Carolina would be Terry Wilson. I think everybody's going to really start to key in on Benny Snell, and even as much as they haven't stopped him. But Terry Wilson, I think, is going to have to bring it this game. You don't see often in the SEC 2 games in a row where your quarterback has a game like he did against Mississippi State. So I think if Terry Wilson has a game like he did against Mississippi State, they're not going to be as successful as they were. The rain played a lot in that game. Wasn't a very offensive game, but we're looking at good weather as far as I've seen so far for Saturday. So I think Terry Wilson's really going to be the key to the game in that pass rush again. If Kentucky can get a good pass rush on the edge from Josh Allen again, and if he plays like he did, then I just don't see how they can lose to South Carolina. I'm going to go Kentucky 28, South Carolina 21 tentatively right now in this one. But the key to the game, I'm definitely going to have to say, is Terry Wilson.
Okay, odds makers right now in favor of South Carolina. We're both a little iffy on why that might be.
Don't understand.
But Casey, of course, going with the Cats in that one. Casey, thanks for joining us to talk about UK and the rest of college football. But don't go away. In a few minutes, you'll come back and talk some Rams and the rest of NFL with us. But for now, let's move on to Harry's Heisman hopefuls. Me and Casey, we talked about Benny Snell possibly being in there, but this is Harrison's time to give you his 5 guys right now that he's got in the top 5 for the Heisman. So Harrison, give us what you got, bud.
All right. I am going to think of a number between 1 and 10. Give me a number, and that is the number 1 and 5, and that's the number on my list that I'll start off with. 1-5. So not 1-10, 1-5.
4.
4. Okay. Number 4 on here is Dwayne Haskins.
Dwayne Haskins. Yes, the guy that most people have at numero uno right now.
Yes, definitely. He, quarterback, as everybody knows, for Ohio State, 304 passing yards and 5 touchdowns against Tulane. Tulane. Just making sure.
Green Wave.
I am just making sure. He had a very, very good day. 1,194 passing yards and 16 touchdowns this season. If that doesn't make him a Heisman contender, I don't know what does. And
he's definitely in there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And his skills are definitely going to be put to the test when Ohio State takes on Penn State next week.
That's one of those games that could be looked back upon if he ends up winning it as his big Heisman moment. This is the game where you've got an opportunity to create that. But give us another guy.
Will Grier, quarterback for West Virginia. We got to see him back after the previous week. We did not get to see him play due to his game being canceled due to Hurricane Florence. But against not Texas Tech, Kansas State. Texas Tech is who they play next week. 356 passing yards and 5 touchdowns against Kansas State. That makes him have 1,117 passing yards and 14 touchdowns this season.
And that's with one less game played than everybody else, too. That's insane to think about.
That is good. And I also, this is definitely going to be a challenge because Texas Tech, like UK, Texas Tech is ranked now.
Yeah, they moved
are
into
25.
The top 25.
They're only 25 after, I believe that it was Oklahoma State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another upset. Okay, now I'm going to give you Kyler Murray for Oklahoma. He had a bit of a struggle this weekend.
That team as a whole had a struggle.
Yeah.
I watched some of that game, and Army had the most brilliant strategy I have ever seen. So their offense had this game plan to where they were able to orchestrate 2 drives in the second half that went over 10 minutes. Their entire game plan was not to let Oklahoma get their offense out on the field, and it almost got them to win.
It
was so close to having them pull off that upset. Brilliant strategy, but Murray and the Sooners ended up overcoming and getting that win in overtime over Army, one of Natalie's favorites, the Black Knights.
But they take on Baylor next, so hopefully we'll be able to see Kyler Murray do his thing and hopefully see Oklahoma improve. And for the season, he has thrown for 1,028 passing yards and 11 touchdowns. Pretty good.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. All right. Now, 2 and 5. Did you just want
Do I have to pick one of 2 and 5?
Just do it. And then you don't have, this is the last time you get to pick too, because the next time let me tell you. You only leave one left after you pick. So.
If number 2 is not Tua, then I know that number 5 is Tua. So I know for a fact that one of these is Tua. So give me the one that's not Tua.
Okay, that's that is Justin Herbert.
That's
and you
what
are
I'm
right.
taking with all this one.
Tua is number 2. Tua's number 2.
Okay.
Tua 2. So Justin Herbert is at number 5 in. Oh my gosh! Along with the ODU win, one of the most shocking games.
Shocking.
No, I'm not trying. Well,
shocking.
Okay, you said not to use that joke anymore, but
did you see where Kelly lost and can't beat Kelly? Someone beat her.
Yes,
she lost.
I saw that on the story from Instagram.
Yep.
Shout out to Ben Davis and Kelly.
Yep.
Anyway, Justin Herbert threw for 346 yards, only 1 touchdown against Stanford. But on the brighter side of things, Justin Herbert has thrown for 1,186 yards and 13 touchdowns this season. And they take on California next.
Cal, that's a good matchup. Cal ranked now.
Yes. Yeah. And last, but definitely not least,
Will Grier.
We already said Will Grier.
Well, but usually he's last, but definitely not least.
Yeah, well, he was last week. But
I've just gotten used to it.
This week, it is Tua Tagovailoa. Did I say that name?
That is the closest you've gotten.
Oh
Tua
my
Tagovailoa.
gosh, I thought I was.
You are
okay.
so close.
I thought I was going to get it right this time.
You are so close.
It's okay.
You'll get it next week.
It's okay. Definitely next week. Next week. As everybody knows, quarterback for Alabama, 387 passing yards, 4 touchdowns against Texas A&M. You can watch this game if you are a Bama fan, but it's going to be another blowout. They take on Louisiana next week. I didn't even know Louisiana. The only team, I thought LSU was Louisiana's
There's
team.
LSU, there's Louisiana Lafayette, there's Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana Tech. Yeah.
Well, I know, but like as LSU is in like the only good team in Louisiana.
Wow. Okay. Shots fired at the state of Louisiana.
You got to go for the SEC. You got to go for the SEC.
Outside of Baton Rouge.
You got to go for
bang,
SEC.
Bang.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Anyway,
man,
yeah. Those are Harry's Heisman hopefuls, and this is also a little first. Not only asking you to pick numbers for me as I randomly select, but I now have a first Harry Heisman hopeful honorable mention.
Is it Benny Snell?
No, it's not.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
It is. That was sarcasm there. Yeah. I think you guys would think it would be pretty crazy if I didn't mention
I was
this.
like, oh my
but
goodness.
you had mentioned this guy to me. I looked up his stats, and
as a Florida fan, I know it's very, very difficult for you to just grasp the fact that a Kentucky football player is closer to the Heisman Trophy than anyone on Florida's roster right now. I know that's tough.
Well, yes, but anyway. Enough about that. Over to the stats now. This season, 87 attempts, 540 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's pretty good for a running back.
It is pretty good.
That is pretty good. And he is my honorable mention. I hope to see more of him because he's obviously helping Kentucky do really well this year.
They're in the top 25 now.
Yeah, number 17.
We love Benny Snell. I know Casey in particular loves Benny Snell. He's fun to watch. He's a great football player. But those are Harry's Heisman hopefuls this week. We're going to transition from Harry and his Heisman hopefuls, very well thought out, very well calculated, to Natalie and natural selection. As always, it is now time for natural selection following Harry's Heisman hopefuls, the ultimate paradox. This is time for Natalie. You're back.
Yeah, I am.
You're back. Natural selection. She's going to pick the games based strictly off of the mascots. She is now 7-3 overall in the season. Went 3-2 last week to back up a 4-1 first week. For her, at least it was week 2 of the college football season. But Natalie, are you ready again? You ready to go at it again?
Absolutely. I got a good feeling about this one. And
All right.
I've had only mediocre feelings before, so...
All right, first matchup, the Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions versus the Florida International Golden Panthers.
So they're both golden, so
Right.
no one gets a color advantage.
No
on this
color
one.
advantages, at least for this matchup.
All right, I was so fixated on the gold that I forgot. Was it Panthers?
It's the Lions versus the Panthers.
Lions versus Panthers. Okay, so Lions are usually pack hunters, so they have really good teamwork skills. And my understanding is that Panthers are more like solitary. So
Okay.
you get a bunch of them together. I'm not sure they're going to have that natural advantage that a team of Lions that are already used to working together would get.
So you're taking the pack of Lions.
I mean, I want to say Panthers because I think
You
Panthers.
want to.
Yeah, Panthers are really cool, but I think based on my own logic, I think the Lions have the advantage here.
Okay, Golden Lions take game 1 now. The Purdue Boilermakers versus the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Excuse me? Are these real teams?
Yeah, the Boilermakers, that name is literally just, they make boils is the definition, and then Cornhuskers, they husk corn.
Oh, yeah, I'm from the South. I've husked plenty of corn. Don't you worry about that.
So that's what you've got to work with.
So I gotta say, husking corn is not really gonna intimidate me.
Okay.
If you can make a boiler, then I bet you can use a boiler. And there's no telling what you can boil. One might even think you could boil some corn.
Ah, okay.
So I'm going to go with the boiler makers,
Okay,
even though I really think they need to find a new name.
So you don't like their name, but you're going to take them anyways?
I think they're both very... I'm going to change my stance. Both of those are great names, and everyone else should change their names. I mean, how many Tiger teams do you have?
That's
Like
true. I mean,
15.
you literally, in your first week, had to pick Tigers versus Tigers. I mean, there's so many. So she's taking the Boilermakers in the matchup of odd names. This next one, the Old Dominion Monarchs versus the East Carolina Pirates.
Well, those so you would think that pirates would be the natural enemies of monarchs,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't like a lot of monarchs like sponsor pirates?
Yeah,
And
there have been a lot of
like
cases.
Buccaneers or something.
Right.
So I feel like
Are you taking a tie? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
They're just going to get on the field and be like, you know what?
No,
we both
no.
win.
So you think, okay, the monarch, he's got all this power, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if there are more than one of them, they're gonna disagree.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like each other. They're
No
vying for
oligarchy.
power. They use pirates to vie for power. And my thing is, a pirate is specializing in mutiny. I mean, mutiny, number one source of using that word is basically piracy. So
Right.
I think pirates in any day would have a very good chance against a monarch, especially.
So that sounds like East Carolina is a pure lock in this game.
The other guys aren't even going to score.
Okay, so we've got a shutout for the Pirates over the Monarchs. Now,
That'd be so messed up. if
this
that actually
matchup,
happened.
this one might be a little bit of a personal pick. The Marshall Thundering Herd versus the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers.
Well, you're probably thinking it's personal because I go to Western.
Right.
So it's actually personal because there's this high school where I'm from called
Mm-hmm.
Station Camp, and their team was also called the Thundering Herd.
Oh, okay.
And
So
see, we always made fun of their name
Oh, okay.
and called them the Thundering Turd. So with a name that's that easy to make fun of, I have a feeling their team is pretty lackluster. So I'm actually going to go with WKU.
even though you're wearing green right now, usually that's their team colors. Sometimes you like to go with that.
Well, I wear green because I'm Irish.
Okay.
I'm
but
actually
then
not. I'm not Irish.
You just think you feel like you're Irish. It makes you feel Irish.
I'm just getting in the spirit of things for St. Patrick's Day, which is definitely coming up.
All
next
right, half a
couple
year
months.
away, close enough. All right, this last one. This one,
no,
I feel
another.
like this is going to start being irregular just because you have a personal connection with this team. The Coastal
what's
Carolina Chanticleers
All right.
versus the Troy Trojans.
Troy Trojans.
Two mythical figures.
Yeah, that's deep. Yeah, let me think. So,
Remember what happened the last time you picked against the Chanticleers?
I know. I don't really want to pick against them, but I will talk out my thought process
Okay.
a little bit more. Trojans. So Trojan War, they convinced the Greeks to accept the gift of the horse, right? And were able to, enact violence upon
Yes,
them.
they have the skill of deception,
But
but
they were only tricking human beings. Human
ah,
beings
okay.
who did not necessarily have magical intervention at that moment, although there are all kinds of gods mixed up in there somewhere
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But so I think that with the added element of the arcane, the Chanticleers can probably overpower a mere Trojan horse. Come on.
Right, the fairy roosters versus the horse, a wooden horse versus a fairy rooster. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. Mm-hmm. So she's going with the Chanticleers once again. Natalie this week has the Golden Lions, right? Golden Lions, not the Golden Panthers. Even though you
Yeah,
wanted the Golden
I wanted
Panthers.
Panthers. Yeah.
All right, she's got the Golden Lions, the Boilermakers, and the Cornhuskers in the Battle of Lame Names. She's got the Pirates over the Monarchs in a shutout, the Hilltoppers over the Thundering Herd, and then the Chanticleers over the Trojans. Natalie, thank you once again for joining us for Natural Selection.
Once again, happy to be here.
And with that, we'll move on from where all the athletes are begging to be paid to where most of the athletes probably get paid too much. Let's talk about the NFL. Another exciting week of NFL play now in the books. A lot of upsets for sure. That Bills-Vikings game takes the cake, of course, but another big upset. The Titans, favored to lose by 10 in Jacksonville, go down there to the Jaguars Stadium and win that game 9-6, a very physical matchup, and the Titans seem to thrive in those. But Harrison, did you see this coming? Because I did not.
No, I did not
I
come
did
to see
not.
this coming. No. It was very, very unexpected. And seeing how the Jaguars did last year, and seeing how they've started doing this year as well, I did not. I thought the Titans were going to lose this game.
Yeah, I did too.
And now they are 2-0 in the AFC South, and Mariota's back, and they did pretty well, I guess. No touchdowns, but they managed to stop the Jaguars from scoring some touchdowns.
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is
the
not bad.
defense was the story in this game for the Titans. Was
Yes.
able to limit what the Jaguars were able to do, both in the air and on the ground. Of course, it helps when Jacksonville doesn't have Leonard Fournette. That
That is
obviously
true.
helps
That
a
is
bit.
true. That definitely destabilizes the offense.
Yeah, I
in a
mean, when
way.
you're missing
Yeah.
your star and your franchise cornerstone, that hurts a little bit. But to the Titans' credit, they were able to take advantage. They did just enough to win the game, but just enough was not very good. It was pretty ugly to watch. Passing game was not very good for the Titans. Blaine Gabbert ended up getting injured. He got a concussion, had to leave the game. The Titans then turned to Marcus Mariota, who is also injured. He's got an elbow injury. He came in. He threw for 100 yards, no touchdowns, but was able to get the job done. The Titans, as a team, ran for 150 yards. Mariota had over 50 of those, so that's what he was able to do to, I guess, help contribute to this win. The Titans actually just signed Austin Davis, who has been a backup for like 5 or 6 teams, to come in there because of the quarterback situation. And Harrison, they are going to be in some serious trouble if either A, Mariota isn't able to come back from injury at least 80 or 90% pretty soon, or B, somebody does not separate themselves, because right now, even a healthy Mariota has really not been enough to carry this team to victory unless they get defensive performances consistently like they did in that Jacksonville game.
It sounds like if Mariota is injured, it sounds like it's going to be another quarterback situation like WKU in a way.
Yep.
In a way. Yeah. But then again, Mariota did come off the bench and did lead the Titans to 3 scoring drives in the fourth quarter, which did help them with the win. And it seems like it was just what I didn't watch the game, but I did because I was watching because honestly I don't really like to watch a game where someone is not scoring any touchdowns.
It was not the most watchable game.
No. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But it does raise a big question now. The Titans are 2-0,
right,
in the division, and now both of these teams are 2-1,
right.
So it raises a question. Who's going to come up on top on the AFC South?
The Jaguars.
Still,
I do not hesitate.
You still
I do not. No.
Okay,
With a healthy Leonard Fournette, the Jaguars are the best team in the division. But I mean, to the Titans' credit, the Texans were thought as the second best team in the division, and they beat them. Another ugly win. But the Titans were able to win that game, and now they go to Jacksonville and beat the division favorite. So it certainly says something. But at the end of the day, I just don't see them being able to.
No.
I mean, they can hang with Jacksonville, but a fully healthy Jacksonville team is just on another level from the rest of that division. But now that you bring that up, do you think that the Titans could be a serious threat to win that AFC South? Or are you like me, and are you a firm believer that Jacksonville has pretty much still got a stranglehold on this division?
I'm kind of thinking back to the question that we asked each other a while ago. If the Titans are eligible for a wild card,
if they,
spot.
you think if they can compete?
Yeah, I do. At this point right now, I do believe that the Jaguars are going to win the AFC South. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that if the Titans can figure out like what to do with Mariota and Derrick Henry, Taywan Taylor, the rest of that offense and that defense, just in general, I believe they have a chance at making the wild card. I mean, I'm also looking at their. Oh, never mind. I just lost their schedule. Hold on. Yeah, well, they play the Eagles next. That'll definitely be a challenge. Carson Wentz is back and managed to put up a good fight against the Colts, or managed to not lose to the Colts. But then they play, I believe it's the Ravens, and then the Bills, and then the Chargers for the remainder of October, and then after that'll determine if they get the wild card spot or not.
I mean, I think they're certainly going to have a shot at it. I mean, they could end up sneaking in there at the wild card. There aren't too many great options. At this point, I think the Chargers are going to get one of those, just because it looks like the Chiefs are going to run away with the AFC West, and I still believe in my Chargers. I had them in the Super Bowl. I don't know if I can still believe that, because this Chiefs team, just that offense is ridiculous. But I think I think the Chargers will end up getting a wild card. So I think that other spot could definitely be up for grabs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I think they're going to end up. It's going to end up coming down to either them. And it could be the Dolphins.
Yeah,
the Dolphins are 3-0.
They are good. Yeah,
it could be the Patriots if the Dolphins.
Did you know
somehow
I'm sort of a
finish
Dolphins
that
fan?
I mean, you're from Florida.
Well, yes, yeah.
So I mean, I guess.
And my grandfather was a big Miami fan.
Okay, well,
So,
I mean,
so.
I could kind of.
So I'm kind of supporting my Dolphins here.
Okay.
You would think I would go for like the Buccaneers or the Jaguars, but I do kind of like the Jaguars now that they've been doing well and they've been making a name for themselves.
I like the team that's good.
Yeah.
I like the Warriors now that they have DeMarcus Cousins and Kevin Durant. They seem to be my favorite team.
I am the bandwagon. I am going for the team that everybody is going for, you know?
And you're a Florida Gators football fan?
Yes.
That's the bandwagon right now?
That was sarcasm in that previous statement. Okay.
Okay, whatever. Anyways. So it's going to be, if the Dolphins somehow finish off the AFC, if they finish off this season and can win the division, then it's going to be down to them and the Patriots. And, I mean, who knows what's going on there. Brady does not look good at all. That defense looks terrible.
As Bill Belichick said during the press conference, we need to do everything better, and boy, do they ever.
I mean, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah,
they've had worse starts.
Yeah, they have.
They have had Tom Brady get injured in the preseason and had to stick with Matt Castle for an entire season, and they missed the playoffs. It could be one of those seasons. They could go 11-5 and miss the playoffs. Who knows? It's going to come down to that or a team in the AFC North, either the Ravens or the Bengals or the Steelers, whichever one does not win the division. So it's going to be...
I love how you didn't mention the Browns.
No, the Browns are not going to make the playoffs. I don't care that...
No,
Baker Mayfield was great.
No.
It was fantastic for them to win a game. Great.
Yeah.
I said last week, I told you, I said put it in stone, the Browns are beating the Jets. And at halftime, I was scared for my life because every time I say that, it does not happen. And then this week, Baker came through for me. Great move.
And
putting him there.
now he is the starter
Yes.
for the Cleveland Browns.
Thank you,
Yes.
Hugh Jackson.
Maybe there will be some improvements there.
There should be.
Yeah, there
I don't
should.
know why Hugh Jackson didn't have him in before that point. I don't know what he was thinking. That kind of reflects pretty poorly on him to not have the judgment to have him in there. But that's a completely different story. They got the win for me. They're not making the playoffs, though.
No,
they're not making the playoffs.
No. Maybe a couple more years.
But the Titans could.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Titans, I think, have the potential to be a playoff team. But when you take a step further, if they make the playoffs, okay, let's say they are able to slip in there, whether they win the division, whether they get one of the wild card spots. At the end of the day, Harrison, do you think this Titans team can legitimately contend with the best teams in the AFC? We saw them just beat the Jaguars. Not at full strength, but they beat the Jaguars. The Titans have a really good secondary. They've got Byard back there. They've got Malcolm Butler. But can this team 100% legitimately? They don't have to. I'm not saying can they beat the best teams in the AFC, but can they put up a good fight if they were to meet some of the top teams in the playoffs? Say they get matched up with the Chiefs. Can they hang with the Chiefs? Say they get matched up with a Steelers team. Maybe the Steelers fix all their problems. They get matched up with the Steelers. Maybe they get matched up with the Patriots. They figure everything out. Can this team hang with the top teams in the conference, which aren't as strong as they have been in the past?
I think out of those three teams that you just named, I think the Chiefs are the strongest team.
Yeah, the
at
Chiefs
this
right
point.
now,
Yes.
it's super crazy to think about this, but the Chiefs seem to be by far the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Patrick Mahone, for doing that. And to answer your question, from what I saw last week for this week of the NFL, and just see how those teams have been doing, it seems like the Chiefs would be the only team they would probably lose to. They would probably put up a good fight against the Steelers and the Patriots. Maybe lose against the Steelers, because
I'm not saying those teams are going to win their division. Those are just the traditional division winners.
Yeah.
Coming out of there.
Yeah, I would think. I don't really know. I mean, I'm gonna say they would lose to the Chiefs. They would probably beat the Steelers. The Patriots, I don't know.
This is very similar to your stance on WKU being bowl eligible.
Yes, I know.
Like, it's not impossible. They could, but it's not likely.
Exactly. But
It's right in the middle.
Yeah, it is right in the middle.
It's right down the middle.
Yeah,
This team
yeah.
so far this season has been right down the middle. There's been a lot of good. There's been a lot of bad. But right now, the Titans, 2-1 so far this season. And with that, we'll bring Casey back now to talk about the rest of the NFL and look forward to week 4 already of the NFL regular season. Casey Warner back with us now. We're going to talk about the Los Angeles Rams first, his favorite team. Casey, a Rams super fan, and right now, the Rams are off to a fantastic start to this season.
They are off to an absolutely fantastic start. 3-0, riding high, number one in most websites power rankings, and I believe it was a great game against the Chargers the other day. We saw that offense really open it up. All three receivers were involved, as we've seen in all three games. Jared Goff looked great, over 500 yards total offense, and it definitely looks like they're trending in the right direction.
I mean, that game right there, that Chargers-Rams game, I have that as my Super Bowl. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick with that. I'm going to try to. I still like what I've seen from the Chargers, but the Rams, it looked like in that game, were just the far superior team. And so far this season, they've looked like, I'm not going to call them the Alabama of the NFL, but they have looked to be on another level of everybody that they've played so far this season, and they've played some really good teams.
They have. They've played the Cardinals, the Chargers, and week 1, I believe they played the Raiders.
The Raiders.
So, I mean, the Cardinals and the Raiders, not exactly two powerful teams. Raiders were supposed to be
The Raiders were
good.
thought to be a really good
Thought
team.
to be really
Harrison
good, and they
had
shut
them in
down.
the Super Bowl.
Right, he had them in the Super Bowl. And as we see, that wasn't the brightest pick, but nonetheless,
Some shade.
the Rams have definitely dominated thus far this year, and I'm very happy to see that. And I think the NFL is actually happy to see a Los Angeles team succeeding since they didn't have football for so long. And I think the Rams are definitely portraying that well this season. The offense is looking great as they did last season. The defense is looking dominant. They had a couple injuries this week that I think are going to bother them for some time, but they'll definitely build off that as they can, and I think they'll improve as the season goes on.
Just a little personal thing. We look back on our Super Bowl picks. I think Harrison had the Raiders and the Eagles I believe, were his picks. I had the Rams and the Chargers. Whose would you rate as better right now?
Just a hunch. I'm going to go with Tyler's.
Thank you.
I don't know why. You know, the Raiders, like we said, not too good. 0-3 right now, and the Eagles are 2-1 or 1-2.
I think they're 2-1 now.
Yeah. So I mean, the Eagles, not so bad, but they're definitely not looking as strong as they did in the Super Bowl last season. But Rams are definitely a lot of people's Super Bowl favorites right now. So Tyler, you're looking pretty well on that preseason prediction for the Super Bowl.
I just wanted to rub that in Harrison's face. My Chargers, they're not looking as great. I think they're a better pick right now than the Raiders for sure, though, just to kind of dig it in a little bit more. Yeah, but right now the Rams look to be a pretty safe bet for anybody in the Super Bowl. I think they just passed the Patriots to have the best odds of winning the Super Bowl, actually. And right now, when you look at the rest of the NFC, and if you look at the AFC with the Chiefs as well, but particularly talking about the Rams right now, is Los Angeles at this point in time a lock to at least make it to the conference championship?
Right now, it's looking so. I mean, there's not a lot of very strong teams who have put themselves out front in the NFC other than the Rams. I mean, you got the Eagles, who are obviously the defending champs. So, I mean, I think you can definitely put them up there, of course. The Saints, they're looking very good again this season. So, I think you can definitely put them up there with Drew Brees looking as good as he is. I mean, he's ageless at this point. He's looking amazing. So, Saints, Eagles, Rams, those are your three at the top right now. Other than that, before this week, you could have maybe said the Vikings.
Absolutely.
But I mean, not looking too good against the Bills this past Sunday, so maybe not as much anymore. Maybe the Packers, they haven't looked all that great, but the NFC, which was thought to be strong this preseason, is looking like there's maybe three teams that are front runners, and definitely the Rams for the most part.
I mean, last week I basically told Bills fans, like, hey, I'm sorry. I am sorry if you're a Bills fan. You need to go root for another team. And now they come out here and do this? Like, I'm sorry if you're a Vikings fan. Like, when you look at the Vikings like really closely, they should be really good. And in the first 2 weeks, they looked really good. And then they have this game and they just fall apart. And it seems like, once again, you hate to judge a team this early in the season, but it looks like they're going to have another one of those seasons where they seem to have all the pieces, but they're just not going to be able to go all the way. And when you look at the rest of the NFC, you touched on the Saints. They might have the best offense in the NFC. The Rams are probably right there with them, but their defense isn't really good. We know that. Historically, they haven't had a very good defense. It seemed like last year their defense started to round into shape. This year it has not been the case. And you look at the Eagles, they've got question marks with Wentz coming back from injury. Their defense hasn't looked particularly great. The Rams just seem to be right now the most complete team in the NFL. Their offense, you could say, is the most balanced with Gurley and all those receivers. And then their defense is probably just the easiest way to describe it, the most talented defense in the NFL.
No doubt. I mean, like I was saying earlier, they did have a couple injuries that were concerning over the weekend. Aqib Talib had ankle surgery today. He's looking to be out for at a month tops, maybe. Marcus Peters, they're saying, could play Thursday against the Vikings, which will be huge, So those are two concerning injuries, but as we said, those were great signings in the offseason. Aaron Donald looking pretty good again this year, and Ndamukong Suh looking pretty good this year. The defense has definitely got it all on paper, as does the offense. And we're definitely going to see Thursday who's going to be the front runner in the NFC with this matchup between the Vikings and the Rams. So I'm looking forward to watching that.
That's going to be a huge game. Thursday Night Football, Vikings and the Rams. A lot of big matchups this week. One of those including Kansas City going to Denver for Monday Night Football. And the Chiefs right now, as good as the Rams have looked in the NFC, the Chiefs have looked almost that much more superior than the other teams in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes, Casey, 13 passing touchdowns through 3 games, an NFL record. And this makes me, I've seen a lot of people asking this question, so I thought I would ask you, is Patrick Mahomes the best young quarterback in the NFL right now? And you can define young, 25 years or younger maybe, so you can throw, I think Carson Wentz fits in there, Deshaun Watson's in there, Jared Goff is the same age as Mahomes.
Right.
Would you go as far to say that right now, Patrick Mahomes is the best young quarterback in the NFL?
As of right now, going into week 4 in the NFL, he's probably the best. I mean, how can you argue with 13 touchdowns? That's very impressive.
You could say he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
You definitely could.
I mean, I'm not saying that if I had to pick a quarterback on my team, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes. But numbers-wise, and just looking on the field and watching him play, he's been the best quarterback in the NFL this season.
I mean, numbers don't lie, and definitely the most efficient to this point. 13 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I don't know how often you can ever say through the first 3 games that a rookie NFL quarterback has thrown, well, not a rookie, but second year, his rookie season basically, but a rookie quarterback has thrown 0 interceptions in their first season starting. I mean, that's just unheard of. You can obviously throw the names like Wentz and Goff in there, and they're definitely strong contenders. But as of right now, Patrick Mahomes is looking like the strongest young quarterback in the NFL, and those numbers are definitely showing.
I mean, I think Goff is the guy that I would put right up there with him. Maybe Deshaun Watson pre-ACL injury, and then Carson Wentz, same thing with the ACL injury. I mean, he was looking. People forget he might have won the MVP last year if he didn't get injured. Carson Wentz.
He very well may have.
And I mean, but right now, Patrick Mahomes is looking like the clear front runner for MVP. The guy that was somehow there with him, I still do not understand it. Ryan Fitzpatrick. He threw for 3 picks last night against Pittsburgh, but I mean, he still looked pretty good. He threw for over 400 yards.
He did.
And I hate to give him props. I don't want to give him props because Ryan Fitzpatrick should not be good, but somehow, some way, he just continues to go out there and have solid performance after solid performance. The first quarterback in NFL history with 3 straight 400-yard games.
That's impressive. I'm honestly surprised that Drew Brees didn't already have that record as many times as he's thrown for 400 yards. I mean, he goes for 4,000, 5,000 yards, it seems like almost every season. So the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick, Fitzmagic, was able to break that record was that's pretty impressive. So I'd say they definitely need to ride his coattails a couple more weeks at least before they think about putting Jameis back in there.
Yeah, and he's coming back from suspension, and a lot of people are talking about Jameis coming in and starting immediately. And to me, that does not make any sense because Jameis did not look very good.
Yeah, I don't see
hasn't
it.
had really a point in time where he looked like the franchise cornerstone quarterback that even I thought he would be coming out of college. He was a stud in college.
He was.
I knew he would be better than Mariota. I didn't think Mariota would be fantastic. He's been okay, but you're getting outplayed by Ryan Fitzpatrick, and you're probably going to be replaced by Ryan Fitzpatrick. That is tough to handle, but I got to give him credit, I guess. Ryan Fitzpatrick continues to roll. The Buccaneers, though, they ended up falling to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who ended up, this is great. The Steelers technically did not win a game this season until after the Browns did.
That's correct.
Technically.
That's pretty funny.
I know a lot of Steelers fans, and I know that is going to sting at them.
Same
but
here.
Pittsburgh, they've got another big game coming up this week. They host Baltimore for Sunday Night Football. Some other big matchups. The undefeated Miami Dolphins get a chance to really prove themselves in the AFC East. They go to New England, and the Eagles play in Nashville against the Titans. Other than that Vikings-Rams matchup, I always have to put like a handicap on these because I know which one you want to pick, and I kind of want to just like make you branch out a bit because I know you know your stuff anyways. Other than that Vikings-Rams matchup Thursday Night Football, which matchup are you looking forward to the most this week?
Definitely looking forward to Dolphins at Patriots.
Really?
That is a huge game.
Yeah.
I love to see the Dolphins 3-0. You love to see anybody that's on top of that division but the Patriots.
Yeah.
It just seems like a broken record season after season at this point. And, I mean, it's really impressive to see what Adam Gase is doing with that roster. I mean, Tannehill looks good back this season. The offense looks great, and the defense looks exceptional as well. One of only 3-0 teams so far in the NFL this season, them, the Chiefs, and the Rams. And I really think if they can beat the Patriots this week in New England, they can definitely sew up, total control of that division, and that would be very impressive from a team that we didn't think we'd see that much out of this season. And I'm really looking forward to that matchup in New England. Hopefully they can shut down Tom Brady and the Patriots.
So another reason that I kind of handicapped you on that one is because when I asked that question, I really wanted to get to take the Vikings-Rams game. And I knew that you would take it if I didn't handicap you. But I really want to see that game because I want to see if the Vikings can bounce back from what can only be described as a disastrous performance for them. I mean, the Bills were just the consensus worst team in the NFL coming into week 3. Now I think it's the Cardinals probably would be everybody's pick for worst team in the NFL, but the Bills looked terrible the first 2 weeks. And then Kirk Cousins come out, 2 early fumbles, let the Bills get a big lead early on. Vikings unable to come back from it, and now they're sitting in a position where they go to LA for Thursday Night Football with a matchup with the Rams, the undefeated Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people think they're the best team in the NFL. A lot of people's Super Bowl pick right now. So a big chance for them to prove themselves and put themselves back into that NFC title picture if they can pull out a win or at least compete with the Rams in that one. So with that, we'll move on to fantasy football. We'll bring Harrison back. But before we do, thank you, Casey, so much for joining us once again. And we look forward, as always, to having you back in the future.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. Always a pleasure.
Last week, my fantasy team fell to Harrison's. This week, though, we each had a little bit of a twist of fate. My team pulling out a huge victory. Harrison's team falling in defeat. Harrison, what went wrong this week, dude?
Let me tell you, Tom Brady, for one thing.
Let me tell you, you sound like me about to go off on my players.
Let me tell you something. Tom Brady, of course, definitely screwed some things up. Only 7.5 points. Disappointing, Tom Brady. Really the only person that did good that I started was Todd Gurley.
Okay, I mean, every week Todd Gurley's going to be here.
Yeah. I keep getting trades for him. I'm like, no. He is the person that is keeping my fantasy team winning games right now. He's the only good player right now. You know how when you start a fantasy team, all the players that you have on the bench always do better than the players that you start?
It always happens.
Exactly. And it happened to me. It always does. It happens.
I mean, I had Carson Wentz on my bench. I started Kirk Cousins. The only person on my team I have any complaints about this past week was Kirk Cousins. How do you only score 10 points against the Bills, my guy? How do you let your team lose to the Bills, my guy? What has to go wrong?
My guy. I had Jared Goff and Andy Dalton on my bench, and they did. Really wish I just switched it around. Maybe had Tom Brady on the bench and had Jared Goff starting, so I had two of the players from the Rams offense starting. Oh well, though. I will fix it for next week.
Speaking of that Rams offense, I have a few of those guys in this week's fantasy rolls of the dice. Last week I did an okay job, except for telling you to start Kirk Cousins. Sorry about that. My bad. I thought he might do well against the Bills. My bad for thinking that.
My bad for thinking that the Vikings defense would do something against the Bills.
Our bad.
Our bad.
Our bad. Anyways. This week, we'll start out with the quarterback. Not going with Kirk Cousins again, obviously. I'm going to go with Andy Dalton. They play the Falcons. The Bengals do Atlanta. They've given up 300 yards back-to-back games. Of course, it was to Drew Brees and Cam Newton, so take what you will. But Andy Dalton's already thrown 8 touchdown passes this season, including 4 against a pretty good Ravens defense, so I think that's a good matchup for him. And sticking with that matchup, I'm going with Giovanni Bernard again this week. I took him last week. He came through for you. He almost scored 20 points against the Panthers. Take him this week. Take him again. This is a banged-up Falcons defense. They're a little injured. I think they've got some injuries at linebacker, safety as well. And they just gave up 34 points to Alvin Kamara, so take Giovanni Bernard, Andy Dalton. Anybody you can get from that Bengals offense. Take them in that game. At wide receiver, though, we're going with Will Fuller against the Colts. And this is all about the matchup. That Colts defense is still not very good. Will Fuller, back-to-back 20-plus point games. It's not over yet. It is definitely not over yet. He's going to put up a few against the Colts. He might not get to 20, so I might be wrong. But if he gets you between that 15 to 20-point range and you put him in your lineup, you are welcome. And then my extra flex. This is when I get to the Rams, Harrison. Any Rams wide receiver that you can start, put him in your lineup this week. I love those 3 guys. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. I have Brandon Cooks on my team. Any of those guys that you can get in your starting lineup. If somebody's got him on the trade block for some reason, trade for him. If you've got him on your bench, change that. Put him in the starting lineup. They need to be in your lineup. Those guys are going to perform. I know they play the Vikings defense, but they haven't been that good this year. And I'm a little upset. With the Vikings right now. So
I am too.
If the Bills can put up points on them, then I know for sure that the Rams can. So get any Rams players that you can in your lineup every week. But especially this week for sure. Harrison, you got a good bet with Todd Gurley this week, too.
Oh, yeah. And I'm definitely switching out Tom Brady with Jared Goff. Tom Brady, you're going on my bench this week. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. Got to throw Jared Goff in there.
I'm benching Kirk Cousins, too, so I feel that is your fantasy roll of the dice for this week. We're going to take one more break, and then we'll be back with what not to watch for. Winding down here on the 4th edition of the Nickel and Dime podcast. We're down to our last segment, this week's What Not to Watch For. Harrison, what do you want people not to watch for this week?
Let me tell you something, Tyler. What I have not to watch for this week actually sets up for the next week and then the week after.
Okay.
You want to know why?
Why?
My what not to watch for is the Tennessee Volunteers.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
Listen here. Listen to who they play next, and listen to who they play the week after, and then the week after that. This is why it's probably going to stay like this for the next 3 weeks. I'm probably not going to change it. They play. Just listen to the teams. I don't know the exact order, but they play Auburn,
Georgia,
Do you want to guess the last one?
Bama?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
no.
Yes.
I just figured it had to keep getting worse. So that's where it had to go to.
Exactly. And they lost to Florida. They lost to West Virginia. I just don't. They're going to lose these next 3 games.
That's the roughest 3-game stretch probably possible in college football.
Yes, exactly.
Probably. Okay, I like that one a lot. If you're a Tennessee fan, watch out.
I'm sorry, UT fans. I'm from Tennessee, and so don't watch those games. Save yourself. Save yourself the pain.
My what not to watch for this week is simple. Don't watch for anything to change in the NFL in terms of who the 2 best teams are. I think the Chiefs are going to come out on Monday night and send a huge statement against the Broncos. And I think on Thursday night, the Rams come out and they pretty much just put all the air out of the Vikings balloon, whatever was left after that atrocious Bills performance. That was terrible. You can't be a Super Bowl contender and lose to the Bills by that much. So just don't watch for the Vikings to change any of that, and don't watch for the Chiefs to stop the roll that they've been on. That is this week's What Not to Watch For. For Harrison Valk, I'm Tyler Eaton. A huge thank you to Casey Warner for joining us once again, and Natalie Turner for coming back for Natural Selection. Once again, if you're listening on YouTube, drop a like, subscribe, do whatever you can. Share it with all your friends. We appreciate that. If you're listening on Anchor or whatever app it sends you to, like, follow, and share. Let your friends know what's going on here. We've got some great stuff going on here on the Nickel and Dime podcast. And with that, as Michael Scott would say, we'll catch you on the flippity flip.